The views expressed by the hosts of the In Full Bloom Book Club series are not necessarily those held by In Full Bloom Media. Our hosts do not claim to be experts on the topics we discuss, but instead will express opinions derived from their own experiences.
The In Full Bloom Book Club is committed to exploring real issues that affect humanity. These conversations may be challenging and heavy, but we believe them to be necessary and hope they will be empathy cultivating and transformative for the host and for all of you. Please remember that these discussions are made for an adult audience, so view at your discretion.
Welcome, explorers, to our season finale of the In Full Bloom Book Club. Here we utilize the transformative power of storytelling to explore perspectives, cultivate empathy, and inspire positive change. This season, we have read two books, Heaven by Emerson Whitney and Scorpionfish by Natalie Bakopoulos. During today's episode, we will be reflecting on the things we've gained from these narratives and speak to the future of how we would like to move forward with these newfound understandings.
And as a reminder, in this season, our theme is childish, and we've made it our goal for the hosts and community to explore the topic of transformation and why it is important on a personal and societal level. Our hosts openly and vulnerably took the time to consider the wounds they brought into adulthood and the obstacles they faced. We worked through all of this while diving deeper into the beautiful narratives of these two books and sharing our own personal experiences. So without further ado, let's jump right into our questions.
Our first question is just about general thoughts on this season. What did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about the world? And what way, if any, were you informed, enlightened, inspired, or encouraged?
I know for me, these two books definitely made me take a look at what my anxiety is currently. I've always had like a pretty broad idea of what my anxiety is. I've had it for a really long time, most of my life, but these two books have made me look more closely at like what is the things I'm anxious about, why I'm anxious about it, and they've actually made me look into exploring ADHD as a formal diagnosis instead of just something that like I'm pretty confident I have, because a lot of those anxieties go back into that. But it was interesting that just by reading these people, explaining their narratives and going through their life stories, that it made me kind of have to process what my anxiety is now as opposed to what it has always been my whole life.
Thank you for sharing, Bridget. First of all, y'all, we're at the last episode of this season. Wow, that's exciting. What a journey we've been on. I want to say, first of all, in regard to just being inspired, I'm very inspired by the both of you, by your vulnerability, your openness to this process, and also just about learning about all of our hosts, including our host who hasn't been able to be here with us for a few episodes, Joshua. We miss you, Joshua. I think that I'm so amazed by the way you all show up in the world and the important work that y'all are doing, and the way, again, you come into the space. That's been really inspiring. I think I've learned so much about different experiences, varying experiences, whether it be delving into the political conflict and the ethnic conflicts and kind of the crisis that was happening in Athens, Greece, whether it be kind of exploring a lot of the theorists, philosophers, and researchers talking about trans identity. Like, I just learned a lot about the varying perspectives, about the diversity of opinion and regarding some of these topics. I mean, just about things that I'm privy to it because there is a plethora of information out there, but I haven't necessarily put myself in the path of being aware of some of these theorists, some of these intellectuals. And so it was really fantastic to be able to not only read about a personal narrative, but gain so much insight about varying topics.
And I want to point to Joshua with that too, because he really put a focus in Heaven on the theorist and talking about trans historians as well, which was not necessarily a new concept to me, but like you said, Tia, it wasn't something that was like in my space. Shout out to Joshua. Thank you. We appreciated your insight to all of that as well.
I think it's also kind of easy for us to look at some of the cultural movements that are going on as kind of just like a trend or something that we're just, not something that's been researched, that's been a developing struggle, a developing movement, and not to say that something that's risen, out of nowhere, so to speak, is not just as important. But I think it's important to note in regard to trans identity. One, people's personal experiences, I do think matter. That's a part of why we've made this platform for sharing personal stories. However, I think it almost, in our world, I think sometimes like empirical evidence can seem to offer legitimacy to certain things. And I think that it is maybe worthwhile to also explore the history behind certain things, to explore the evidence that has been accumulated around certain topics as just another way of understanding or another way of knowing. There are a lot of ways of knowing. One is like the scientific method, right? Another way is, feeling or an awareness in your body. Another way is spiritual beliefs. And so I'm happy that we are able to not just talk about, hey, like this is experientially what's going on in regard to the trans community, and this is what the people are saying, and these are the voices that we hear from the people. We're also able to talk about, hey, people have studied the minds of trans individuals, people have studied the struggles of trans individuals, the perspectives.
I would say something that I learned about myself that I criticize a little harshly, if I'm being honest, is just how like the information that I have is just really misguided. My understanding, again, when it comes to like trans identity, even though my partner was going through his own transition, I still wasn't informed to where I could, reading through heaven, like I would be like, oh yeah, I recognize that. And, I still didn't, I was still learning so much throughout heaven. It caught me by surprise. I literally live with someone who's like going through all these things, and I should know pretty much anything and everything there is, but that's just one perspective of this really big idea, this really big situation that's happening. So it's refreshing in a way, because it's again, it's kind of like that I'm constantly being challenged type thing. But it's also, it definitely knocks you down a couple notches, because you're like, oh, okay, we not out here with all the information. We don't know everything there is to know about these things. And even when we feel that we finally got to a place where we know everything, things are constantly changing, and people are constantly bringing up new points and new perspectives. On a global level, I was thinking about this from reading Scorpionfish, and just desires, and how we all have desires, and they're like a plethora of like what those desires look like and how they feel and how we translate them. My understanding of happiness is just like, oh, you live a good life, you have money and all this stuff, and like that's what happiness looks like. But like happiness can look so different to so many different people, and I think that's so beautiful. And reading these stories, when you're realizing the things that make people happy aren't quote unquote traditional, or they're just completely different from anything you can imagine, it's just so interesting. And it's just, this whole world starts opening up, and it becomes so much bigger, and it becomes a place that you really want to explore. I feel that this season has really inspired me to take the power of like dialogue, like the exchange of dialogue is very powerful. And it's this exchange. You're giving something and you're receiving something at the same time. And I want to treat that with the most respect. And I'm still learning how to do that. Of course, we have those like conversations where it's, just like, small talk. But I think just there's so much you can gain from talking to another human being. And I don't know, I just want to dive deeper into that world of that exchange, and how it can make you feel, and which you can ultimately make that person feel.
I wanted to touch on a point you said, Asia, about like how you were just talking about the learning process that you were going through with heaven. And it did just, it's that reminder within heaven, especially, I felt this, that like people within these groups are not necessarily like the representatives of the entire culture. That I think sometimes when we talk about, especially trans people, because they have been so dehumanized in our society, that sometimes we do think of them as just, this one group that all thinks the same and is all the same in some ways, and in like most ways they're all the same people, right? And it is that like reminder that I felt like Heaven did a really good job of subtly putting in consistently, that no, this is a concept much larger and much more historic, that there's no way that everybody could be of the same mindset because they're all individual people throughout history. It's a historic process that's gone through just as many changes as European thought processes, and all of the majorities that claim all the space instead.
So on to our second question. Both of our protagonists reveal elements of their past that they've had or are having to work through. If you had to name the largest wound you are healing from at this moment in one word, what would it be? Also, how are you, if at all, working to heal this wound? Do you believe these methods are adaptive?
Fun question, huh?
Oh yes, thanks, Tia.
Yeah, just put your whole soul out. Right
really
now.
Quick, just in one word, whole soul. There you go.
Yeah.
For me, it's relationship trauma. And I mean, that's not just my exes who have left their own nice little scars on me, but my relationships with my parents and my family, and just how that has created who I am today. And in some ways it's great. Some ways those relationships really helped me, but in other ways, they, like I said, they left their scars, and they were processes I've had to create quite a few processes to work through it. This is a nice one for me because for the first time in my life, I actually feel like I'm in a much better place with my trauma than I have been in a very, very long time, and really ever. I am very big on coping mechanisms. Huge. I love them. I love sharing them. I love helping other people find them. I just think that the more and the better ones you have that you've created in patterns and you've created through continuous use, the better suited you are to deal with your triggers. So mine are absolutely adaptive. I'm really big on mantras. That's one of the big ones for me that really helps me move through things. The biggest one for me is if it's mentionable, it's manageable, which helps me just like unload it a little bit and not feel like I have to carry this heavy burden in my heart and not have it have this power over me. Another one is you are good enough. And that's one that really has helped me in the past, where when my brain starts cycling and it just can't move out of this circle of self-doubt and self-hate, that if I can start repeating that, then I can disrupt the pattern in my head of what I'm doing instead. And you can only think one thing at a time. So if you're thinking you are good enough over and over again, well, you're not going to think how much you hate yourself over and over again too. You got one or the other. There's been a time period in my life where all of my coping mechanisms all at once, they all fell apart. I thought I had a really good grip on my anxiety and my depression, and I thought I was doing a really good job of it. And then literally within a month's time, nothing worked. Everything fell, everything was gone. And I had to relearn and train new processes, which is really hard to do when you're 24, 23, and you thought you had them, right? Like I was good, and I had created these over a 15-year long period, and then they just fell apart, and I had to create new ones. And it was a process. So, I mean, part of those coping mechanisms is also therapy for me, because without therapy, I can't create the foundation I need to be able to continuously heal those wounds. And this year I haven't been able to go to therapy because my health insurance hasn't been as good as it has in the past. So I've also had to do meditation, because meditation can also create that foundation for me. The other really big one for me is remembering what my glimmers are. We have our triggers, we're used to our triggers, but we don't really know our glimmers. Our glimmers are the things that make everything feel okay for just a second. Like triggers make everything feel terrible. Glimmers just make everything for half a second like, oh, the world is fine, I can keep going. For me, one of my biggest ones is just driving over a bridge. I love looking at the water. I love how it gleams on the surface. I love the waves lapping next to it. Like I love picturing like jumping off and into the water and just getting to float. Like it is such a peaceful moment for me. And it gives me such a moment of like, okay, everything's okay. I'm fine. Like whatever thought process I was going, whatever narrative I had running around in my head, whatever fake conversation I was running through with somebody else, like let it all go. Everything is okay. But I love that healing process because it is such like, that's the part that like, you know, we all can relate to trauma. We all got trauma. Everybody's got something on their back. But getting to talk about the healing part of it is so much more fun to me because it's like, here are the things that can help you. Here are the things that help me. Maybe whatever I say sparks you on your own little mantra that's going to help you the next time that you feel that trigger. Like trauma sucks. It all freaking sucks. But we're on YouTube, guys.
You've done great all season.
I know. I really tried with the sailor mouth.
Let it out, Bridget.
Thank
Let
you.
it out.
Trauma fucking sucks. And
Thank you.
the healing process is what makes it all better again. It makes it all worth it again.
I have to say, I am a mantra queen myself. I literally just told Tia one of them, like, before we started filming, by someone like I watch on YouTube. I trust her so much. Something in my work situation has changed, and so like it put me in this like weird spot. But basically, she always says that rejection is spirit's protection and redirection. And I love that because sometimes you get in this space when things don't go your way, like, okay, the world's ending, or like, you know, nothing's working for me. And you get like just kind of spiral into that.
Mm-hmm.
And I need ways of pulling myself out. I need ways of inspiring myself and like just grounding myself in those moments so I don't just go on that slippery slope. Something I'm dealing with right now is just the fact that I thought I was just kind of like this fixed person, like, oh, this is me now and whatever. No, I am still changing so much. And like, that's honestly really scary because I feel like I just crave consistency for some reason. And when I notice that there are things about me that are changing, like I'm no longer doing certain things that I used to do even months ago, you know? First of all, my life compared to now where it was a couple months ago, completely different. It's nerve-wracking, but I'm finding light in that there's purpose. But with changing, it's about progress, it's about growth, and those are the things, you know, thinking about it in that way helps a lot. That's my coping. It's just acceptance and then ways of appreciating what's happening, so then I can gravitate those type of energies towards me and my situation, so I'm not wallowing and I'm just like, okay, you know, bringing more just craziness to my life. I truly and genuinely believe everything happens for a reason. And yeah, that provides me the comfort and that grounding that I need to move through those really tough times. I find myself sometimes getting overwhelmed by everything. And like sometimes, you know, my mantras don't work for me, or, you know, just being like, hey, it's going to get better one day. That doesn't always help. And so sometimes I do need something different, you know? So I'm going to try to find ways of new healing. And I do meditate. That helps. I haven't done it in a while, but definitely grounding myself in my spirituality does help a lot. So
yeah, part of what you were saying too, Asia, is that we look back and we feel so much pity and so much sorrow sometimes for who we used to be. Like I think about little Bridget all the time, and I wish I could just go back and just, you know, envelop her and protect her and keep her from the things that I've had to go through. But and I'm getting teary-eyed just talking about this. But at the same time, I look back at little Bridget and I'm like, you made choices that I would never make. And I am so proud that now I would never make those choices. So I think it's also in giving ourselves a little grace about the past and being like, hey, yeah, I wish I could still be that like spunky little thing that thought I had all the power in the world. But also, she was real dumb. She was not smart. She was not doing things that I would do now. And like remembering that was a kind of a helpful process for me when I was moving into, like, my boyfriend calls it Bridget 2.0. Like, yeah, moving into that space of like becoming who I am now, it helps me. So I wanted to share it in case, you know, remember that maybe you should have, you wish you would feel those same things, that you were, you know, those same processes that you wish you could do now, but also those processes don't serve you anymore. And there's a reason for that. It's because you've grown and your brain's grown and who you are has grown. So there's no reason for those processes to come forward with you anymore. Now it's time to build your own so that you can go into Asia 2.0.
Abso-freaking-lutely, yeah. Bridget. I love that. Well said. So thank you.
Yeah, Bridget, I think talking about healing is also really empowering and affirming, because we can talk about what we're doing right now in healing. Yeah. And I think sometimes when we talk about trauma, whether it is that there's guilt attached to the trauma that you've experienced, or you just feel like broken or not worthy as a result, I think that there can be a lot of feeling very much like a victim of circumstances. Yeah. Healing is an intentional effort, you know, so it can be a reminder that like you're working and you're working hard. Like, yeah, it's going to be fantastic when you get to that point, whatever that point is that you want to get to. But wow, look at the work you're putting in now. That's something that's incredible. That's remarkable. You know, the resilience of the human spirit is incredible. To answer the question, so the things I wrote down were worthiness and like my self-concept. But then Bridget, as you were talking about inner child, I wrote that down as well because that's something I've been working on with my therapist a lot. And I never thought I would feel comforted by the visualization of an actual inner child. But boy, do I visit my inner child, like literally go inside my head as adult Tia and like cuddle my little, like provide her blankets, like pet her head. I literally do that in my head. Because I feel like I have a lot of just open wounds right now. And I'm not, if I'm being honest, I'm not quite sure why that is. In my vulnerability, in my humility, in my quote unquote brokenness right now, I feel the most light pouring in. I feel the most authentic. I feel closer to who I am than I've ever been. In regard to like worthiness and self-concept, I think I spent a lot of my life finding value in the way I've been able to serve other people, whether that be like being the perfect person for everyone and doing everything for everyone. And I'm finding out how toxic that is. I'm finding out how limiting that is in my relationships, and how that doesn't even provide other people an opportunity to get to know me and to truly connect with me. I'm finding how ego driven that is and how problematic that has been. So I'm literally having to deny myself or attempting to deny myself of the opportunities for that thirst for value to be quenched in that way. And it has left me with a sense of constant feeling of, you know, people don't value you, you're not enough, or I don't know. It's quite a journey. But yeah, I would say that's the first thing that came to mind, like in this moment. There are different things, different days, but in this moment, that's kind of the first thing that came to mind. As far as how I'm working to heal this wound, I do enjoy mantras as well. I was just speaking with Bridget about the fact that I love just the art of language in general. It's something that really speaks to me. In the depths of a depression, I put the Invictus or Invictus? Is it William Ernest Henley? I have that literally in my bathroom by my mirror. And it kind of, the poem talks about going about life's journey and the hardships with this sense of, you know, it says my head is bloody but unbowed, and this sense of keep going. And that's, I don't know, it feels affirming. It feels like that's what I've been doing. And I get really hard on myself about the things that haven't come together, the things I've had to give up. But I feel a sense of pride in the fact that I've been through in these last couple of years the hardest time that I've been through likely in my life, and that I've kept going and I found a way to show up for people and show up for myself. And so I'm really proud of that. And it talks about even kind of looking to the years with a sense of uncertainty and a fear, but still going on nonetheless. And I don't know, there's something just beautiful about that, but also a delve into other people's stories, into what that author must have been going through. And it kind of, I don't know, I think stories and words can also connect us to the human story, to like the commonalities in all of us, and something about like, hey, they went through it, and they went through it, and that person went through it too, and we're all like, this is the human story. And I'm gonna get past it too, I think is really beautiful, especially connecting to people who an author who wrote this amazing poem that is now encouraging me. The fact that I can connect to their story makes me feel, I don't know, kind of good about myself. So yeah. I also do, like, I have some mantra, like devotional music I listen to. That's another way that I think is good for me to receive information and just feel. And so that's been really helpful for me. I have a therapist. Thank goodness for modern medication. I take medication for depression, and it's an antidepressant, but also has anti-anxiety property. And these are all kind of the adaptive ways that I feel like I'm coping. And also taking time to just be with me, because I find when I'm just with me, there's a lot that I appreciate about myself. And I know my heart, and I know my story. Sorry, I'm a crier, so I'm really trying to pull it together. But yeah, I think that makes me, I think around people, there's a lot of insecurity and there's a lot of comparison and all of that. And so just sitting with myself, I think I'm reminded of how much I appreciate myself. And so that's really great for me.
And I just wanted to throw it out to our audiences to remember that this is a hard process, and you are literally changing your brain chemistry to create new synapses so that everything is connected in the way that you feel best connected. And that's hard. And it's amazing that you've done it even one step of the way.
Okay, so our last question will be, how has this season informed your perspective on transformation, both personal and social? And in staying committed to our pillar of growth, what are some ways you will implement this new understanding, and how can you further that understanding?
So I personally really liked what we talked about with the Scorpionfish book, about how this transitionary period didn't necessarily have to mean transformation. And there are still absolutely things about me that I want to grow into, or I want to heal, or I want to process differently. Like, I'm definitely a person that snaps very easily at people, especially when my boyfriend says I get into cleaning mode, because then I don't want anybody to talk to me. I just want to get things done. But so there's definitely like things about me that I still want to transform, so to speak. But I also really love the comfort of this idea in Scorpionfish, where I don't always have to be transforming. I've gone through some pretty heavy transformations. I mentioned in the last question, my boyfriend calls it Bridget 2.0, because I am such a different person than I was even 2 years ago. But I like who I am, and I don't necessarily want to completely transform again. I don't want to have that big moment. I want to just be able to be me and have me grow more into me, if that makes sense. I don't want to have another butterfly transformation. I just want to like flap my wings a little harder. I don't want to constantly have to change to adapt to new situations. I want to be a person that already is adaptive. So I think as far as like our pillar here of like growth, I think for me, growth at this moment is being able to accept that who I am right now is a person that can do that, and just learn to adapt into that process, instead of constantly being like, oh, I have to overhaul my entire personality and everything I am and move forward.
I will say this is something that I have been learning, but I think this process is furthered this understanding, is that transformation can be messy, or is messy. I'm not going to say can be. I don't know if you can quite transform without the messiness of it all.
Butterflies turn into goo first.
Yeah, and I think that it's important to note, because I constantly have a fear of saying the wrong things, doing the wrong things, constantly aware of what other people think and feel. And this is the platform of being on YouTube, is something that I never thought. Literally, when Asia and I came up with this concept and decided we were going to do a season, initially I was just going to be in the background and helping formulate questions and doing the production stuff, because I was that fearful of someone can literally come back to this 5 years from now, and they're going to understand me based on my opinions 5 years ago. And what if I've changed? Or what if one day I'm just not communicating the way I want to communicate, and something comes off in a way that I didn't intend for it to be? But I think that the reality is that I know what I know. My awareness right now is all that I can be aware of, right? And so my understanding is informed by that. And so the reality is that there are going to certainly be either ideas and opinions that I have right now, or methods, ways of communicating ideas and opinions, that I'm going to look back 5 years from now and be like, interesting to you, very interesting. And that's growth, that's transformation. And there was a Brene Brown quote, and I'm paraphrasing it. I might be hitting it on the nose. I think I'm paraphrasing. But it said, get rid of the notion that you can press into your purpose while pleasing others. And I think a part of my purpose is sharing insight and sharing diversity of opinion and sharing all the nitty gritty and the ugly, the quote unquote ugly of, who we are as human beings, the thoughts that we don't want to share with other people, the opinions that we feel like, you know what I mean? Because that's the reality of the human experience. That diversity is the reality of the human experience. And I think every voice matters. Every thought that I have in my mind is, I think it's kind of worth exploring. And a lot of times it's worth exploring with other people that helps other people feel understood, encouraged, inspired, enlightened. There are a lot of things that, even in this process, I felt encouraged through kind of having these thoughts in the back of my head and being like, but should I say it? Because it feels so different from, the popular opinion or the opinion that is least popular in the circle that I run in. And then when I was validated by other people saying, hey, I thought about the same thing. And I think that the fullness of the human experience can only be understood when we're all being honest and letting our ideas come to the table. The reality is that we all have different skill sets and different beliefs and different ways of viewing the world that can be such a great contributor to the way we operate and the way we structure our civilization. And I think these conversations are so important. I say all of that to say that's a part of my purpose. And I cannot do that whilst also being afraid to say anything that's on my mind or afraid about how everyone's going to perceive me. And so I think this just highlighted, this gave me so much comfort around this opportunity. Also we're able to edit out certain things so I can backtrack if I need to. That gives me some safety net there. But yeah, I never thought I would feel so comfortable in this space. And I'm really thankful for this opportunity of pushing me to make peace with myself in every single moment. The same thing with social transformation. I think we need to recognize that we had different understandings at different periods of time and move forward with clearer understandings, more clarity, more understanding of what's necessary for a particular point in time. And sometimes those things may change. And if personal transformation is messy, social transformation is super messy. And so I think having some empathy and some heart for the messiness of that as well as some hope in the ability of time and intention to heal things. Yeah, I think I'm going to try to to further my understanding. I think this process and continuing with seasons of this and watching people as well, if I'm not involved in a season of the Info Boom Book Club series, watching people be so authentic and vulnerable in these conversations will be encouraging to me. I think continuing to talk to vulnerable people, I think continuing with therapy, I think studying the process of transformation. I've been doing like a personal development plan, and right now I'm focused on financial stability. But in future upcoming months, I'll be focused on mental health and spirituality and relationships. And at one point, I'm going to probably do something on transformation, or at least that'll be a component. And I just think that intention is so important.
My understanding of transformation from kind of the conversations we had throughout this season, one, that transformation is inevitable. But I think it's inevitable, but it varies between how often you transform, or how many times that happens for you, and what that looks like, what that feels like. That's all something that just can't be written for any one person. I feel like in any period of transformation, there's a lot of unknown uncertainties, and when you're faced with that, there's a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of, well, let me pick this up today, let me try this, let me figure this out. And that can create that mess for you. How can I further my understanding? I really don't know, but I think I'm okay with I don't know. I think over time I'll probably get a grasp on how I can, again, because that's one of the issues I'm dealing with now is change. I think over time I'll start grasping some concepts, some understandings, and how I can deal with transformation. how I can kind of face it head on without feeling like I need to cower away or, whatever, feel like I just need to retreat into myself. So right now it's I don't know, but I'm okay with that.
I'm glad you said all that, Asia. It is like easy to forget that transformation, especially after you've like felt like you've kind of shifted out of it, it is all blind trust and like fear, and it's all like, hoping you'll get on the other side of it. I've had issues with suicidal ideation before, so for me it was pure hope. It was maybe I'll make it. It wasn't always I'm sure I'll make it. So I honestly kind of forgot how fearful and how much trust it takes in yourself and the processes around you. So I appreciate you saying that.
I'm starting to learn in my personal experience that some things can only be learned through experience. I prided myself in being one of those people who don't have to like knock their head first in order to like learn things, and kind of being an academic, so to speak. Like I'll study things and learn things that way and be able to apply them, but I think the reality is that some things can't come into awareness without having a lived experience. I was looking at the meaning of the prefix, the root word trans, and it means across, over, or beyond, which also made me think of movement and the necessity of kind of not only the change from one end to another, but the necessity of that movement across. As much as I was just literally talking about how with intention I can, learn more about transformation. I think some things about transformation even are going to be learned just with the process of living. So we have an activity.
We are going to end things on a lighter note. We're going to go into a fun little activity with the cast. A good way for us to see how we kind of been getting to know each other, see what we think about each other. And so we're going to play Who's Most Likely To. So we have a series of questions, and we're just going to kind of talk about who's most likely to whatever that prompt is. So let's jump into it.
Who's most likely to undergo a transformation that makes them absolutely unrecognizable the next day?
Ooh, I want to say Asia for this one.
I'm gonna say Bridget.
I was thinking Tia.
Oh, how funny.
What?
Asia, I was thinking Asia specifically because you are like actively going through like big changes right now.
Right.
And you're just enough younger, right? Like Tia and me are just enough older than you. We're like,
so
our shit's like halfway more set. Where like yours isn't quite as set yet. Like you're still baking.
Okay. Gotcha.
That's my argument for Asia. She's still baking.
Switch over to Asia. Actually, I think it's Asia too. The first thing that came, so I was thinking, I feel like Bridget would likely be like dye her hair randomly one day. I think, I don't know, I can see some impulsivity in Bridget that would
actually, it took me 3 years to decide to do this. It took me 3 years.
Would you consider yourself impulsive in any way?
No. Not even a little bit. Literally everyone hates how much I lack impulsivity. Like I won't. It takes me so long. Like I've been shopping on ModCloth for 4 years. I just now bought my first shirt off of there because I just can't make a decision for anything because I think it's going to be the wrong decision. Yeah. It's bad.
Well, yeah.
My hairstylist got mad at me.
I'm sorry for prejudging you, Bridget.
You're okay. I see it impulsive. It's fair.
Why did you choose me? I'm curious. Consistently,
I feel like you have
person ever.
No, correct. But here's my thing. I feel like Tia, there's always like these little bursts of randomness from you. They're very rare, but they happen. And like I can't remember. There was a situation that happened very recently.
Expose me now.
Threw me completely off, and I did not know how to respond. And maybe I don't know. You went and saw a TED Talk one day, and like it was just a revolutionary TED Talk, and I don't know. You were up till 4 a.m. doing something, and like I see you the next morning, and I'm just like,
I had a revelation.
Yeah, you were making me switch to Tia, actually.
What?
She's making me switch to Tia. Because I could see this. You like find a good poem and you're like, I'm gonna develop my entire personality around this poem for the next 3 days. Like I could see that happening.
Actually.
Oh man, I just feel like you just have these moments where you just be so inspired, and I can see you running off on that, and I think that's beautiful. It's just
Yeah. I vote Tia now. It's Tia.
So the next one is, who's most likely to have read the morning before filming?
Asia. Bridget, you look real guilty though.
I definitely have woken up a little early, but I also don't wake up early. So I'm like, oh, I will do this. And then you guys just happen to push back filming by 30 minutes. And that's why I make it. Like, definitely did that with Heaven because it was harder for me to, on my Kindle, to figure out how many pages I had left. So I was really happy every time we were late.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm
We're
gonna
phase that out.
Like,
we're very professional here.
oh yeah, yeah.
The way my time management skills have not changed since high school. Like the fact that I'm still consistently doing things till the last minute, it honestly is like, you refuse to learn this lesson. That's where we're at.
I know. How many times have you been like, I was up till 4 a.m. Like, why? Why were you up till 4 a.m., Aisha?
Who's most likely to be the reason we have to stop filming or redo a segment?
Tia?
Tia.
Me?
Yeah.
Really? Why? What do I do?
I feel like you
get
have these
distracted.
moments where you just want to, I don't know, Tia, like, so again, like I was saying in the beginning, you think 5 million steps ahead. And I feel like if someone says something that you're like, hold on, guys. I feel like we really need to take a moment to make sure we're, not offending, or you really like think through a lot of pieces. And I think that's beautiful, but it can be excessive. So I definitely feel like you definitely had to stop recording because you needed a moment to address certain situations.
I just knew it was going to be one of you two. I'm
Oh no.
surprised.
No, Tia, it is absolutely you.
No, it's you.
What? Okay.
Like me and Bridget, we keep it moving. But
Yeah, like there's no question here. I'm sorry, Tia.
I'll take it. It was
like, you
obviously
also
a unanimous
like
decision.
Yeah, you'll also get distracted by like a tangent on the subject, and sometimes it's like not even related to the question. So then you go like off, and you're like, hold on, I want to talk about. We got to discuss this real quick, and then you're like, woo, and then we come back around, and then we go back into
a lot of grievances right now that are being aired out in the midst of this conversation.
There's so many fun conversations outside of filming. It's great.
you have to be great.
Okay. So it's me.
Getting called out. Sorry, Tia.
So our next one, who's most likely to have read a once banned book?
I would say Bridget or I.
Yeah. I'm gonna vote myself for this
definitely, I feel like you have the largest catalog of books you've read. Also, like, you got strong feminist vibes. And so I feel like over the time of like a patriarchal society, it makes sense that, some books that were banned had a lot of feminist conversation. And so I think for that reason,
usually feminist.
I, on the other hand, I'm like specifically intrigued by taboo topics. And so the concept of like reading those type of books, I've looked for like once banned books out of the intrigue of like reading those books. So
same. I had a librarian in high school who, when a book would get banned, she would tell me what it was. So I could go look and see if I wanted to read it because I was obnoxious.
That's adorable that you had a relationship with a librarian.
Oh my God, I love our librarian. She was so funny. And I like watching the movies of banned books too, to see if they take out the content that was banned in the book in the first place. So like Perks of Being a Wallflower has an entire like abortion line, like a plot line. Yeah, and that book is targeted towards like younger high school students.
Yeah.
And then the movie took it all out. All the things that were like controversial about it, they removed. And it was like actually a really empowering like abortion storyline. So I was kind of annoyed about it. But I like going to check too. I'm like, all right, did you water it down so that like the FCC wouldn't get mad at you? Let's find out.
Who's most likely to read self-help books?
Tia?
Yeah, I would say Tia.
I was gonna say Asia.
Really?
I honestly don't I gravitate toward fiction usually. I am reading a book called The Spirituality of Imperfection right now.
Well,
I think that's why I
yeah.
thought that. I was like, because I remember we had that conversation. You said you just got that book. So I was like, yeah, that feels like Tia. And I saw some of your books in your room. And I was like, okay, yeah.
Asia, have you read any self-help books?
I actually recently read one about finances,
Okay.
becoming financially literate. And then also
that's
there
a
was a
good
spiritual
one.
book that I was reading. So
Maybe you two are tied on this one.
Asia reads watches a lot of like TED Talks and a lot. I don't know. I feel like
dang.
I don't know, Asia. I feel like you'd be likely to pick one of those up.
And I just realized I actually started an audiobook called You're a Badass by Jen Sincero. And I was just like, oh, so actually I think I definitely take this one.
Asia wins.
Our next one is who's most likely to organize a protest?
I don't know. Bridget was just talking about how, Asia, I don't think you're part of this conversation, but she was literally just talking about how she ended up being like, she was at a women's and she was saying, didn't you end up leading a chant?
I had the microphone.
Yeah.
Like they had big pink megaphones and I volunteered the day before. So I was leading the chants on like my section of the walk. Yeah.
I think I get really convicted. And so for that reason, I could see myself. Asia, I think you have fantastic like leadership qualities. And I think you like putting things together and organizing people. And so for that reason, I can see you as well. We're all, just revolutionaries. And so I could see
that's definitely. I would have a hard time I did organize stuff like that in high school. Because I did like a suicide prevention week, and then I did a troops parade. So I did organize stuff like that. But I also am a highly anxious person, and having to like know that I would go to something and be confronted is very difficult.
For my understanding, what is the thing that y'all did?
So the Women's March was a reproductive rights march.
Okay.
Yeah. So our next question, who would be most likely to share intimate details of their life through a partition? Bridget!
Hi. Do we need a partition? Because I don't need one.
You don't, but
yeah.
you still do it with it
there. That sounds cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Bridget.
Bridget. This is a little emotional. I'm just gonna say that. This is our season finale episode. Our first season finale episode. That's crazy.
Wow.
So thank you, hosts, for your honest, valuable contributions today. And thank you, Tribe, for joining us for our season 1 finale. We hope that you have found all of our discussions this season enlightening and inspiring, and that you can take away something from it. If you are completely new to our journey, please feel free to go back and check out our season from the beginning. Hard and digital purchase options, as well as information about the chapters covered in all the episodes for both books, will be listed in the description box below. Announcements for our season 2 will be made via our Facebook, so don't forget to connect with us there for more information. And if you feel so inspired, as my lovely sister Tia says, subscribe, comment, and share. You, our community, are a large part of how we reach our mission for creating a more connected and compassionate society. Thank you all again, and join us next time. There's always room for you here. Journeying well, our lovely individuals.